Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. It's Dave with you. I hope you're doing well. The new year, right? How are you doing with your new year? Are you doing okay? It's January 2025, and we're moving forward into a new year and new things happening in your podcast. I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see where you're going to end up in 2025 with your show. The one thing I've run into, it's an interesting problem. I have run into the problem of having, in some of my shows, too many episodes, meaning like 500 plus episodes. I did the math recently on my shows, and it's interesting. This show alone, like I have my numbered episodes. This is episode 373. But if I do my math, I've got over 500 episodes of the How to Podcast series when I have my Daily Daves, my Question of the Months, all these little things that I throw in as well. It's over 500 episodes, even though this is episode 373. There's a lot of content here. And I had a question from a client around their podcast, and they have a lot of episodes as well. And they're like, Dave, what do I do? Like, the stuff in the past is still good. Like, my content is evergreen. What I talk about lasts for a long time. It's not like the news where it's only news today and then tomorrow something else happens and my content's irrelevant. My stuff is really important, and I feel like with the more episodes I do, the less relevant my old episodes are. So they were asking, what do I do? And how do I fix this? And how do I breathe life back into old episodes of my podcast? And I thought that was a great question because I'm dealing with it as well. So we had a great conversation around that. And from that conversation, I'm bringing that over to you, because if you've done this for any length of time, over time, you're going to get a nice library of content and you won't know what to do with it. And you want your audience to fall in love with not just your most recent episode, but what about like episode 5? What about episode 2? Like back in the day when you first started, but that content's still good and you want people to know about it. We're going to talk about that here on the How to Podcast series. How to revive the classics. I love classics. I love go classic rock, those songs that take you back, right? Just because you heard it once doesn't mean you don't want to go back and hear it again. Just like music, we want to revive the classics in our podcast. How to breathe new life into your Evergreen podcast content here on the How to Podcast series. Here we go. So think about it. You've listened to your favorite band, right? And there's a song you love. Do you listen to it once and never hear it again? You have that jacket, that coat that you got years ago. You love this coat. Like it's when you have a choice, it's your first one you pick. But you've had it for years. Do you only wear it once and then put it back in the closet and you never wear that coat again? Right? There's things that we have in our life that bring us joy, that bring back memories. They're still relevant today. And that doesn't mean we only use them once, or we only don't touch them or listen to them or experience them once. We want to go back and experience them again. And for your listeners, they're coming to your podcast at all different stages in the life cycle, the history of your show. Some people may be hearing this episode for the first time. So welcome to the How to Podcast series. My name is Dave. Glad to have you here. So this could be episode 373, could be your very first episode here on the show. Like I said, there's over 500 episodes total for the How to Podcast series to date. So what happens to the other 500 episodes? Do you go back in time and listen to those other episodes? There's some great content. There's some great co-hosts on the show that came on to share their journey as a podcaster. Their podcasts are amazing. These are really great people, and you need to meet them. And that's the whole idea of the show. And there's other episodes too where we've gone into how to make money with your podcast and how to do this and how to do that. We talk about episode 1 was all around understanding your why for your podcast. A great episode still stands up today. I still have listens. 500 episodes later, I still have people listening to episode 1. There's the trailer for the show. There's multiple episodes for this show. So what do we do with all of this great content? How do we turn this into something that still brings value even years later with this massive amount of content, many, many episodes, how do we leverage past evergreen content in a way to reintroduce old episodes that can significantly boost our audience engagement and the value in the content that we've already done? I have several effective strategies that I want to put in front of you, and you can pick and choose what works for you as a way to leverage this past content and bring new life back to what you've done in the past. Because I think it's still valuable, and I think your audience would love to hear what you've done in the past. Some people, like I said, this might be their first episode. They're going to listen from episode 373 forward. But again, there's 373 numbered episodes, plus all the other ones. There's over 500 episodes here. So I'd love for you to go back and experience that. But there's just so much. How do we make it so it's easy for our audience to engage with past content? It's a great question. And I wonder if you've ever thought about it for your own show, if you've done this for a while. So let's jump in. The first thing I'm doing on my YouTube channel, if you go there and check out my Living the Next Chapter, for example, is I'm starting to group my episodes by topic. So you're like, oh man, I'm not going to do a video podcast, Dave. I don't want to be on YouTube. Well, you don't have to do a video podcast to be on YouTube. My podcast is connected through my RSS feed, which also feeds Apple and Spotify and Audible and so on. It also goes to YouTube as well. Why do I do that? YouTube is a great free archive of everything you've ever done. People get really nervous when they find out that if they stop paying their podcast host, their podcast disappears. Like, kaboom, done. I just had a notice from Buzzsprout. My credit card I have a new credit card. I hadn't gone in there and updated it. And for January 2025, they gave me a warning. If you don't pay your fee, boom, everything older than 90 days, all your episodes are gone. I've got 500 episodes that are way older than 90 days. So I'm like, wow, I got to get in there. I got to update it. These podcast hosts are great, but if you stop paying your fees, they have no allegiance to you. Just delete, delete, delete. So what I love is that YouTube is my backup. Heaven forbid that something happens and I forget to pay my credit card or whatever, or I forget to renew, that I might lose all of my back episodes. I have them on my computer, but I'm going to lose that connection with my audience. And I'm going to have to go through the process of reloading it all, which would be a pain in the butt. So make sure that you have some way of backing up the history of your show. So for me, it's connecting it to YouTube. So it automatically goes to YouTube. Now, again, I've got 500 episodes of Living the Next Chapter, my author podcast. When you go there, it's overwhelming how many episodes there are. You're like, I don't even know where to start. So what I'm starting to do now, and my wife Jen is helping me, is we are grouping our episodes by what the book is about, the genre. Is it historical fiction? Is it a business book? Is it a children's book? Is it a horror book? What is it? And putting them together into a playlist that's supplemental to the main house, where everything is. So there's like these little broken off sections where you can go to that specific section and just get what you're looking for. So if you only like romance novels, all the romance authors are in one location, in addition to all 500 episodes. On the How to Podcast YouTube channel, I broke out making money with your podcast. And so all the episodes that have anything to do with making money, or if my guest co-host kind of goes down that path about making money with your show, I want to make sure that you have just the stuff around making money in one location instead of having to weed through and figure out which one is one for you and which one isn't. I'm trying to group them into topics. So I'm going to have topics for How to Podcast as well, breaking them down into smaller chunks, leveraging separate playlists based on the main hub with everything included. There's these other playlists that just focus on a topic that you might be looking for to make it easier for you just to find a smaller subset of all of my episodes in one location. So go to YouTube. If you haven't done it, create a YouTube channel for your show, connect it to your podcast so that every episode that goes out in audio automatically goes out to YouTube. I create new thumbnails for every episode on YouTube. So do that. And then, like I said, create little playlists to move and make a copy of the episode in a second location so that your audience has an easier time finding and falling in love with your show. It's a great way to do it. I challenge you to do this. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, then reach out to me at howtopodcast.ca and let's start working on your YouTube channel together, and we can do a screen share. I'll show you exactly what to do and how to connect your podcast to YouTube. Love to help you with this. It is a smart way to be found, to be highly shareable, and to archive your show. So please, even if you don't do video, connect your podcast to YouTube as a backup drive. I tell everybody, I'm not interested in making money on YouTube. I'm not interested in growing my channel. None of those things. I'm interested in using YouTube as a glorified Google Drive where all my files are automatically backed up in the YouTube universe, and I don't have to worry about it. And if my hosting site goes away or I forget to pay my credit card, I still have everything there. And you can find me anytime on YouTube for all of my 8 shows. That's how I do this. So think about creating a way to group your episodes by topic. Now, if you're not doing it on YouTube and you're only audio, and you're on Apple and Spotify and all those places, you can also then try to theme a playlist. I know on Spotify, you can create playlists on Spotify, and then the same way, create a subset of your podcast in a smaller group, a smaller bucket, where you take episodes and make a playlist around that. So I could do the same thing for the How to Podcast series and create a playlist on making money with your podcast and put all of my episodes that have anything to do with making money into a Spotify playlist. And then that's a shareable link that if somebody emails me and says, Dave, I have a show, I want to make money, where do I start? I'm going to send them the playlist, either from YouTube or Spotify, and say, here's a great starting point. Listen to all these episodes, and then let's get together and have a conversation. Instead of me trying to start all over again and start from scratch, at least they have a starting point to do their own research and find their way. So create some way of grouping your podcast together. The other thing you can do is using the show notes or the episode title. Put something in those locations that identify what it is that you're talking about so that it's a little more searchable, a little bit easier to find when your audience goes into an app or search and they type in something relative to what you're talking about. So if you're talking about accounting, then make sure you have something that says accounting or taxes or year-end prep or working with an accountant. I don't know, something like that. You want to have some way for people to find a group of what you talk about and have that pop up in a search result. So that's one thing you can do is group your episodes by topic. Create theme playlists, develop content calendar that aligns with annual celebrations and observations. That's another thing you can do is, if you have a dad podcast and Father's Day is coming, then group all your Father's Day episodes together. So you have one location, one shareable link where you can have all of your Father's Day episodes in one spot. It's great. Another thing you can do is how you tag for searchability. To give yourself a fighting chance and to be found, use tagging for searchability. Optimize your episode titles, your show notes, and your descriptions with relevant keywords for better SEO. Use consistent tags across the platforms to improve discoverability. So for me, if I'm going to talk about historical fiction for my Living the Next Chapter podcast, I want to make sure that I have historical fiction for every episode that has anything to do with historical fiction, and that will help me to group better in groups. So when I put in my show notes and my tags in Buzzsprout, there's an option for me to put tags. I'm going to put in historical fiction, and that's going to help group my episodes together if I use consistent tags for each of the different categories that my podcast touches on. So think about that. For me, as an author podcast, what I do is I leverage the genre that's listed in Amazon for the book as my kind of super overall heading for this book and this genre. That way I know that I'm using something that's searchable through Amazon. I'm using the same search terms in my podcast, which will help me to group my stuff together and implement best practices for your SEO, including optimizing your title tags, your meta descriptions. If you don't know what that is, we'll have an episode on that, your headers, and your image alt text. What's image alt text? You know when you have to put a picture up, there's an option for you to put in some words that go along with the image. That's something you also need to worry about too and need to focus on is what are you putting in that image? Is it just say, pick picture 2025? What is that? Like you actually need to put in some information in there as well because those are searchable. So tag for searchability in your podcast, in your notes. Everything you do should lead back to grouping things by how they fit and how they're searched. The next thing is repurposing your content. So I'm playing with something right now. I do a meetup every Saturday, and we're working on Tuesdays as well now. Free meetup for you. It doesn't cost you anything to be a part of our meetups and join the conversation on meetup.com. Links at howtopodcast.ca. But the one thing I do is I turn on this little summary tool now that's a part of Zoom. It's at the bottom of the screen, and you can click it, and it's like an active, ongoing summary of the conversation. It gives you back when you're done action items, follow-up steps, and then kind of in like paragraphs with headings, kind of like a summary of what we discussed in the entirety of the actual Zoom room, which is amazing. I take that and I drop it into like Perplexity, and I ask Perplexity to turn it into a blog post for me. I eliminate some of the things that aren't relevant, but if it's themed around a certain topic, like making money with your podcast, and that was our discussion, it takes what we talked about and all the different voices, any websites that we mention, it notates those, it takes all of that, and it bring it into Perplexity, create a blog for me about this topic and what just happened in that Zoom room. Perplexity spits out this amazing blog. I go through, do all my edits, make it sound like Dave, and then I put it out there into the world. So if you want to see that, let me know, and I'll put a link here in the show notes. You can go and actually see the blogs as I'm working on these. This is brand new for me. I'm not a writer. I've never written anything really, but I just love the idea of taking something that happened in a moment and then being able to share it with the world and put it out there. So use these tools. And if you want to see how I do this, again, reach out to me through my website. I'd love to do a screen share. I'll show you exactly what I'm doing, and you can try it for yourself. If you don't have a blog, if you have no way to share written material about your podcast, then try this Zoom hack. It really works well. It's that summary on the bottom of the screen. I'm not sure. I'll have to check if it's for paid or free, but I'm using the paid plan so I can do lots and lots of recording. I love Zoom. For me, it works the best out of all the ones that I've tried, and it's got these great new tools, which are really helpful. So take your meeting summary, your AI summary, throw it into ChatGPT or throw it into Perplexity, and let it turn it into something more workable, something more readable, and then go through and make sure it sounds like you when you're done with it, and then share it with the world. It's a great way to take that moment and expand on it and reach a bigger audience. So repurpose your content. Transform your podcast transcripts into blog posts as well. Same process. It's the transcript's a little bit harder because it's like word for word transcription, where what I'm talking about with the Zoom summary is more of an overview of the conversation. So I love that. So try that. Create audiograms. Again, not a lot of people doing this anymore. I tried this for a while, and what I'm trying to do with mine is instead of it just being a waveform, that little weird pulsating thing that's on the screen, I actually put myself into the video, into the image. So there's a little circle of me in the bottom corner, and that's just through Canva, and it's me talking about what's happening in that episode. So you get to see me, but it's more focused on the episode and my guest, but I'm just kind of popping in there as a little Dave circle in the bottom. Check it out on my Instagram. You'll see what I'm talking about. So create these little ways of sharing as well. You can produce short video clips. Lots of great tools out there for that. video is one of my things I'm working on in 2025, how I can leverage that in addition to my podcast, not as a replacement for my podcast. A 1 hour talking head video, I don't get a lot of good return on that, and it's a lot of work. So I'm going with more additional supplemental video clips that support my audio podcast, because I still think I need some kind of video aspect to what I do, but a full-on Joe Rogan 2-hour episode in video, it doesn't really work for me. The other thing is design any infographics, any images using Canva is what I use. Also developing your email newsletter and featuring insights from past episodes. So when you look at 500 episodes, for example, of Living the Next Chapter, I know that my audience hasn't listened to every episode. I can see it in the stats that people aren't seeing everything. So I want to go back in time, kind of like a DeLorean experience with Marty and Doc. Go back in time and grab content, bring it forward, because it's still good stuff. These books are still active. The conversation's great. These are amazing authors. So I'm going to go back in time and start re-sharing old episodes to put them out and give them new life again, and have links to them, make comments in new episodes where I send you back for a similar author, similar topic, and invite you to go back in time with links in my show notes that take you right to that episode, so that when you're done listening to this episode, you know exactly where to go next. So that's another way to do that. Repurpose your content. Don't be afraid to tell people about what you've done in the past. It's a great way to have people go back and fall in love with your old content as well. So what's a more focused approach to this? I'm talking about just shining a light in your back catalog. Refer to relevant past episodes in your new episodes. Make sure people know that you've talked about this, or you've had this guest on in the past, or there's something related to this episode today that you've done before, and send them back to that. Make sure you refer to those and give links to them. Highlight a previous episode each week on your social media. So instead of just, hey, new episode this week, everybody, why not go back and leverage an episode from the past and bring it forward into the future? My goal for you in 2025 is not just to grow your podcast audience in numbers, which we all want. I want that. But I also want to grow the depth of my audience. I want them to go deeper into my catalog and listen to more than just today's episode. I want you to go back. I've got 500 plus episodes here. I'd love you to go back and see and hear what we've done in the past. And by growing the depth of your audience, that brings an amazing result for your audience to get to know you better. Instead of waiting for next week for your next episode, let's go back and relive the past and all the amazing things we've done, and bring back the classics, because they're there and they're great, and our audience needs to know about them. So highlight previous episodes and include past episodes in your email welcome sequence for new subscribers. That's great. When these people sign up for your newsletter, send them to a back episode. Send them back in time. Cross-promote related episodes with your current show, and replay popular past episodes, potentially with new intros and maybe an update. Maybe there's something new, there's news about your past guest that puts them into the news cycle, and you're like, oh my gosh, that person was on my show. I'm going to bring their episode from 2 years ago, and I'm going to re-release it, or I'm going to do a new version of it. I'm going to bring the conversation forward because they're in the news right now, and capitalize on what's happening. Thematic things that happen. All these things are great opportunities for you to bring back past content. How do we breathe new life into our older episodes? I got a few thoughts for you. Here's 5 ways to breathe new life into your older episodes. First, update and refresh Evergreen content periodically to ensure accuracy and relevance. What you can do here is simply going into your titles for your old episodes and give them a little tweak. Give them a little bit of love. You created that episode a long time ago. You're a new person. Your podcast has grown. You've learned new things. And you might just want to go back and play with that title. You're not re-releasing the episode. You're not deleting it and putting a new one up. You're just going in there and you're doing some edits. You're playing with the title, playing with the description, maybe some keywords, and then just saving it. You're not reposting it. Nobody's going to get an alert that there's a new episode. None of that stuff's happening. It's just you're going in there and just playing with the words and the wording of your past episodes, which might give you better search results because now you're having better words that are keywords. You know more about SEO than you've ever known now. So going back in time, you might want to play with those episode titles. You did your best with what you knew back then, but now it's time to do a little bit more. So go look at those old titles 500 episodes ago. Do they still stand up or do they need a little love? That's one great way to breathe new life into old episodes. As well, number 2, you can add new introductions to older episodes, noting any updates or current context. Now, here again, you're not going to re-release these as a new episode, giving your audience an alert on their phone that this is a new episode when it isn't. But you can go in, you can change the intro, you can change the outro, you can do some little tweaks and just replace the audio with your hosting site. So when you go in, you'll click edit for that episode and you'll see probably somewhere on your screen, depending on your hosting site, it'll say replace audio. And all you do is take that, click that replace audio, you bring in the new audio, it overwrites the old audio, and then you hit save, done. It's going to keep the original date from when you released the episode 2 years ago, still the same date, but the audio is different than what it was originally because you found or fixed something. You can always go in and do that. If you're nervous about that, reach out to me. We can do that together over Zoom on a screen share. I'll show you exactly how to do that without messing up your podcast or alerting your listeners to an episode that's not really new, just an update. So that's really great. Why do we do that? Because we want to send people back in time and listen to our old shows. So let's keep them relevant, up to date. Think of if you had a tech show and you did an episode about something that doesn't exist anymore. Then instead of frustrating your audience with out-of-date content, maybe you want to take that segment out, just delete it, re-upload the audio, you're done. And then no one's even going to know that you talked about something that doesn't exist anymore because you went in and you breathed new life into your old episodes. Another one you can do, number 3, is to re-promote updated content on social media, new and improved. You'll see that a lot on products on the shelf when you go shopping. Why not have new and improved on your podcast? You can do a little shout out, a little banner on the image, just so people know that, hey, wait, there's something happened here. And your audience knows if they go back into your past catalog that they're going to get great content, even though it's older. New and improved. Throw that on your artwork. It's great. You can also, number 4, repurpose episode content into different formats like social media posts, email newsletters, blog articles. And number 5, you can host a live Q&A session or behind-the-scenes content related to popular past episodes. So I envision you going for a walk with the dog, get your camera on your phone, and you're talking to us as you go for a walk, and you're talking about, hey, 300 episodes ago, I had this person on my show. I was just re-listening to it. So good. And the main things we talked about are A, B, and C. If you haven't heard episode 4 of my podcast, it's a back in the day podcast episode, but it's still relevant. And I'd love for you to go check it out. Link in the notes. I'd love for you to go check it out. It's just great to hear a young version of Dave. And if you want to hear it, click the link. That's a great way to send people back. And you get to tell them why it's worth going back to. So that's one way you can breathe new life into your older episodes. So by implementing these strategies that we talked about, you can effectively leverage your evergreen content, you can improve your discoverability, and you can provide continued value to both new and existing listeners and support your past guests. You want to keep bringing these forward. And when you share your podcast, reshare your old episodes to the world through social media, make sure you tag your past guests. They're like, oh my gosh, it's Dave. He's tagging me again. What's going on? Oh, he's resharing my episode from 2 years ago. This is great. Then they may reshare it as well. And then you get that whole new life breathed into old episodes. So don't worry about having too many podcast episodes. And for some of you listening, you're like, I haven't even started yet. Great. This is going to be a problem I hope you fall into in the years to come, is you're going to have so much great content, you're not going to know what to do with it. And I hope this episode is something that you'll refer back to. See what I'm doing? I hope that you refer back to this episode years from now and go, yeah, I need to breathe new life into my old podcast. And I'm going to use some of these things that Dave suggested. I'm doing this as an example for you on how to do it. This is why it's called the How to Podcast series. I want you to see in real time how you can send people back into your catalog, back in the day, and learn from you ongoing, because your content's so good, it needs to be a classic that needs to be revived on a regular basis. This is how to breathe new life into your Evergreen podcast content here in the How to Podcast series. If you need help with your show, if you want to meet some of the nicest people ever as fellow podcasters, come to our meetup. If you want to be a part of a community, come to our meetup. And let's introduce you to some great, great people. Everything you need is at howtopodcast.ca. Thanks for listening. We'll talk soon. Thank you so much for listening to the entirety of the episode, including this part. You know what? A lot of people leave right now. So we'll let them leave. Give them a second to go. Okay, now it's just you and me. We have our meetups that we do for the How to Podcast series. We do them during the week, and we also do them on Saturdays. So twice a week, you have the opportunity to meet other podcasters, just like you. Some people have just started. Some people haven't even released an episode yet. Some have been doing it forever. And we get together and talk podcasting. We want to help you in community to continue with your show, to start your show, to grow your show. So come and meet listeners of this show in one space on meetup.com. Again, through howtopodcast.ca, you'll see the links. It's completely free to join. Come whenever you have an opportunity to come. There's no commitment. You don't have to sign any waivers. You can just come join us. Come join the conversation. We'd love to have you there, because the only thing that's going to make these meetups better is you being there. So I'm hoping you will say yes. And you'll say, Dave, I'm tired of podcasting by myself. I wish there were people I could connect with that are fellow podcasters and share my frustrations with guests who ghost me, and my editing software is crapping out on me, and I'm just having this hard time. I'm just having a hard time coming up with podcasts, episodes, and titles, and all the things, and social media. And wouldn't it be great to get in a room with other podcasters and share best practices and learn? 3 of our 4 Saturdays every month are themed. So you have a topic, but that last Saturday of every month is open question and answer. Ask anything. Come meet a podcaster. Come enjoy the podcasting community through howtopodcast.ca. Come to our meetups. Can't wait to see you there.